Thank you very much for having me here. And as I said in the introduction, I'm here in my capacity as an enterprise facilitator for Growbiz, a charity out of Perth and Kinross, but works all over Scotland supporting rural and island-based micro businesses with whatever they need at all different times of their business. And there's lots of different resources that we can chat about later. So as I've gone through the last 13 or 14 years of building my own and independent business coaching practice, and prior to that as a corporate sales and marketer by background and profession, I've done a lot of networking, been in a lot of different groups. I've done it well, I've done it poorly. But I think I've got some things that some ideas and some thoughts on what I consider to be kind of best practices that we'll probably have to think about as we're sort of chatting, kind of how to adapt the context, because I've done it from the sense of how one shows up in groups, but it could adapt to how you show up in an online setting and how you kind of think about, a peer-to-peer group versus a chamber of commerce. So we can kind of talk more about that as you go. But yeah, I've got seven steps that I think will help you power up your networking, and then a quick exercise. So first thing is mindset. I would encourage people to approach networking with a "how can I help you" attitude. Oftentimes, the preconceived idea of networking is everybody's in the room with "what can I get out of this? What's in it for me?" which I think is quite stifling and can be quite intimidating. And so if you approach it with "how can I help? How can I be of service?" attitude, and whether you're the person with whoever you are, think about ways that people can help you. And there's a different sort of there's tiers, if you like, in terms of how much commitment you're asking from somebody. You've got the sort of like, share, comment, connect, follow on social media. That's pretty low risk, it's fairly, kind of easy to set up. You can kind of talk about events and collaborations. You can refer, which is, if you think about networking as part of the continuum of building. People need to know about you, people need to like you, and then ultimately they need to trust you. So if you think about things in sort of the know, like, and trust, and that's through your sales, it's through your marketing, however you are, your goal is to let people know that you exist, encourage them to like you and be curious about your methodology, and ultimately trust that you can help them deliver what it is that you say. That's the continuum for all of your strategies. So you've got referrals. You can refer to each other. That's a fairly high level of trust in order to put somebody in your care. So that's going to take a while to nurture that type of relationship. And oftentimes somebody might buy your service as a way of testing whether or not they can trust you enough to refer their clients. So there's different ways that you can be helped. So don't be shy about asking for help while you're there. And you're not there to sell. You're not networking is part of the overall business development process, but it's think of it much more in terms of educating others, building connections, strengthening your business, and that you're in the process of training others. So when I've been in different groups, the idea being that I am training Susanna or Jackie or Paula to be able to talk to other people about what I do. So I'm training you to be able to talk to me. I'm not trying to sell you on me to buy from me. Your goal is much bigger. Your goal is, it'd be great if we worked together, but that's not the idea. Hundreds of people, you've got thousands of clients, that's who I'm interested in. So I need to establish that know, like, and trust so that we can talk about that, and vice versa, right? That's what you can offer to other people. So first thing, mindset. Preparation. You prepare for your day job, but oftentimes people don't prepare for a very important part of the business development aspect. So research the event, who's likely to be there, what might they be interested in. There's going to be different types of events. Think about that first impression piece, anywhere between, and I don't even want to say good first impression because that's so what's the word I'm looking for? Well, it's cliched, but part of my job, Beth, is to remind people of cliches. It's a big part of being a business coach, is to have a ready bank of cliches that we share and sprinkle through our talks liberally, pretending that we've come up with them. But I think that it's, make an impression, the impression that you want to make. So you want to be competent, professional, maybe you want to be relaxed and casual. Think about your brand and how you want to be perceived by the people that you're meeting with. Anywhere from a 1/10 of a second to 27 seconds. Different people, different studies. You don't have very long to make a first impression, but it can take you a really long time to undo it, to create the impression that you actually, want to make. No pressure. But also be aware that I think it's something like 2 out of every 10 people you meet will never like you. They'll never like you, they'll never do business with you. You haven't done anything to them. So, we just have to be comfortable knowing that we can't be all things to all people all the time, and just accept that there's going to be some people that we're never going to reach. Yeah, just focus on the 80%, and hopefully the 2% won't actually let you know to your face that they don't like you. But things like having your business card, and if you don't want business cards, think about you're there to share contact information. So if it's not a business card, are you going to use your technology and tap phones? Are you going to take somebody's information and take a photo of their business card? How are you going to exchange information with people easily and quickly? And I think business cards are the most straightforward way of doing that. So make sure you have them. Make sure you've got pockets to put other people's in. Spend a couple of seconds looking at the business card. Just don't grab it and put it straight into your pocket, as a lot of people do in networking. Set intentions about why you're there. Oftentimes we're quite goal-driven in other aspects of our work, but we don't always think about, I'm going to this event. A lot of it depends on personality styles and what you're interested in, but you're there to meet other people, and they're there to meet other people too. So having a conversation with one person for the whole evening may or may not be the best. You'd have to kind of, the judgments and the trade-offs that we all make. But I would say something like goals that you could say, I want to have 10 conversations. I'm going to be there for an hour and a half. I want to have 10 different conversations, or I want to collect 5 new business cards. Or I'm going to be there for 90 minutes. If the event's 2 hours, I'm going to commit to being there. So your mindset is, I've got a can-do attitude. I'm making the commitment to be there. I'm prepared. I've thought about it. When you get there, because we don't always take the time to adjust our mindset, in a training capacity. If you show up and you were supposed to work hard, but you're not ready for it, you've got to remind yourself that you're there to work hard. You've got to get into the mindset of, I'm here to do this, and so I'm not just going to... So same thing with networking. Remind yourself, I'm there to help others, I'm there to be of service, I'm there to build my business through useful connections. And then, different types of events. So there's structured networking, where you pay a fee to be part of a group, like a BNI or a Circle Networks. There are Chamber of Commerce events, where you can go as a member or as a non-member. There's groups like Growbiz, there's dinners, lunches, there's peer-to-peer support groups. So in that sort of context of preparing, researching, maybe it is useful to go to an event where you're meeting a whole raft of different business titles, because they're going to have different business roles. Sometimes the peer-to-peer group might be most useful for finding collaborations or referrals. So it's just kind of in the same way as you prepare for other aspects of your business, treat the time that you're choosing to invest in networking, because when we're choosing to do something, we're not doing something else. So if I'm choosing to go to a networking event, make sure you're maximizing that time. You don't want it to just be busy time. So really thinking about, especially for us micro business owners, when we've got so many competing pressures. Go ahead, Mary.
I'm just thinking what you're saying feels very useful, not just for actual network events, that are classified as such, but other events that we're part of, that the same applies, what you're saying, to wherever we're turning up as our business.
Yes, exactly. Yes, I completely agree with you. There are events that sort of explicitly build as networking, but if you are showing up anywhere, you have the opportunity to reach out to somebody, start a conversation, and ultimately kind of talk about business. But yeah, lunches, dinners, and all sorts of different things. Really focus on keeping things open. right? And I'm not a body language expert, but one of the things that we talk about in sales is, and some of it is just how people are, right? You can't judge it, but there is some truth to it. So particularly if we're standing up, but your body language, arms crossed, legs crossed, some of the classic kind of barriers that people talk about, your orientation to the person. I know one of the things that I don't do great in networking is I like to feel like I've got a bit of an escape. So I kind of tend to orientate myself slightly sideways to the person, which may or may not convey the message to the person that I'm talking to. He just wants to leg it. So I have to kind of be mindful that that's my inclination, because I'm pretty gregarious, but I'm also kind of an introvert. So I have to kind of elevate my energy to be in a networking type situation. And if I'm not mindful of what I'm trying to do, I might slide into some of those behaviors that I know and tendencies that I might have in a social setting. And so you're not there socially, you're there in your work capacity. So, show up. Eye contact. If you're like, okay, I've got my intention, I've got 10 people, and you're like scanning the room for the next person while you're talking. And I'm sitting, I say these things because it happens. Like, I've seen it happen, and I've probably done it too. I definitely know I've done the poor body alignment. I like to think I don't. I'm like, who's the next person I want to go talk to? But I may have done. You'd have to ask somebody else that knows me.
And also, it's often worse when you are talking to somebody when you get that sense that they actually would rather be talking to the person behind you.
Yes.
And you just go, okay. So.
Yes.
Looking past you.
Yeah. So I think, kind of one of the things, we'll come on to that sort of stuff. Food and drink and your phone, right? The phone particularly is a new barrier, not new now anymore, 20 years in its existence. But you've got lots of reasons, like, particularly when we're standing up. If you're not hungry, don't go to because that's now I'm trying to shake hands, I've got to fish for a business card, and if I've got food and a drink, it's like they create barriers to people being able to talk to us, to making those kind of handshake connections. You're trying to talk and sausage rolls flying everywhere, and all of those different things. It's not a great first impression.
That's my safety net. I'll just go get the food, and then if no one talks to me, it's not a problem.
Right. And that's all part of that mindset piece, right? And I think in sort of the context of being open, be aware that lots of people, other than us, find networking quite challenging. So things that we can do to help other people feel more comfortable. We can go in twos. Don't have to walk around together in twos, but like at least be there, so you've got kind of points of checking in during the evening, and you can kind of support each other through it. Look for the idea of an open group, right? So when groups of people are talking, some people will form quite a circle, and they're quite hot. Other people will form groups that are kind of more of a U or a V shape. So what we can do as superior networkers is encourage our group to stay as a U or a V, because that's easy for somebody to enter into. And you're there to network, you're not there to meet the 3 people that you find the most fun. So if you see that group closing down, you've got a couple of choices, but certainly if you see other people around who are drinking their tea and sort of wondering, how do I get into this conversation, bring them in, or encourage your talk as you're talking to people. Say, hey, I noticed we're getting a bit kind of, let's open up a little bit here so other people can kind of come and join the conversation. So I think it's like that. But people will remember that. They'll remember your kindness. They'll remember your empathy. And given that, all of us actually are in the business of empathizing with our clients, we're using opportunities to show what we do and what we know without actually talking about our business, just like how we're showing up in our professional capacity. So keep things open, and sort of leading on from that idea of openness, think about the questions that we're using. And this is, or that we're asking, we do this if we're in the business of thinking about how do we talk to a client about why they're going to work for us. We probably do it, or why they want to work with us, what problems do they have, how can we help them. We probably do it in our therapeutic roles when we're sitting across from somebody, we're asking, open questions to explore, but we don't always do it kind of conversationally. And I think, again, networking as our businesses is not just us showing up for a chat with our mates. So I think about preparing and practicing good, interesting, open questions. And we've got, a few examples that I like. What brings you here today? Who would you like to meet? Help me understand who your ideal client is. What's the best way for me to refer to you? What do you enjoy most about your work? What's the best way I can help you right now or kind of at the moment? So nice open questions that you've thought about and prepared ahead of time. Then, yeah, I absolutely would. And what brings you here today? Who would you like to meet? Help me understand who your ideal client is. What's the best way for me to refer to you? And I mean in terms of clients, but I guess it could be in terms of how I speak about you as well, because refer works both ways in this context. What do you enjoy most about your work? It's always good to get people talking about things that they're passionate about and interested in. What's the best way I can help you right now at the moment? You know, and then you can kind of think back to all of those different ways that you can help and that you can ask for help. And then once you've done that, the challenge is, and it's a well-used truism, the fortune is in the follow-up. So are you going to write it on their business card? Are you going to make a phone note? You know, I'm sorry, I'm still listening to you, Susanna, but I'm just making a note of what we just talked about so I can send it to you afterwards. Maybe you've got enough of a memory that you can, you know, do it as soon as you get home, or you like skip out to the loo and type it in. Whatever you need to do. The key is because we're going to talk about follow-up. If you don't follow up, nothing happens. The relationship isn't built. You're starting that relationship. You're on the journey of know and like, but if you then don't follow up, you've lost trust. And that's the critical aspect of it. Active listening. You know, you all do it in your work to varying degrees, but I'm sure you all are in the business of actively listening to people, reflecting back to them. You know, I've heard you, Paula, use terms like, you know, holding space and all of those things. Those are critical aspects of active listening, you know, kind of being there, part of that sort of reflective process. Check your understanding. And like I say, you're probably doing this in your work when you're with your clients, so do it when you're talking to people in a networking setting. You know, it's sort of a classic adage that when I was a wet behind the ears sales rep a long time ago, they would say, you know, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Good salespeople use them in that ratio. And I would say even better people probably imagine they've got 3 ears. You know, like it's not about you. It's not about you and it's about the other person. And it's that thing that's very much the same in the networking arena when you're in that business of building rapport and establishing trust. And it's that opportunity to show, not tell, about how you would show up. You know, like we had a really nice conversation. I really felt listened to and interested in. That's given me a lot of confidence that even if I don't want to hire Moira for the work, that actually, given how she shows up at events, I can really imagine that she'd be compassionate and empathetic with my clients. You've just done all that in no way, shape, or form by when I even talked about your work, other than to let people know that it exists. So then the next thing I would think about in the kind of preparation piece is your answers, right? Because we're not the only people that are working on getting better at networking. So that means there's a whole army of other people who are like, oh yeah, let's ask really cool questions of people. Let's ask them about their passions. Let's ask them about their clients. And sometimes if you haven't prepared for it, that can feel really intimidating. You can feel kind of put on the spot by being asked. So, you know, it's the first time I've met you, chit chat. So how can I best refer to you? I don't know. So it's all about that whole practice, right? You know that those kind of things are likely to come up, and it's all a work in progress. It's all, you know, and there's all sorts of different ways you can approach it, but you know that that's likely to happen. So I'd encourage all of us to think about how we talk about ourselves, our business, what we do, what outcomes we deliver, more than what we do, because it's really hard to explain your particular modality, but I can connect to the outcomes that you get, that the people who are working with you get from your work. That's much easier for me to understand and think, you know, and be open about talking about what you need, right? You won't get anything without asking, so don't be the only person in a networking event that never says actually I could benefit from some help. Remember that people connect emotionally, which is this whole aspect of talking about the outcomes that you get, and they connect with stories. So maybe think of some quick case studies that you can share about a client, you know, and sort of have that as an illustration of the work that you do. And, you know, in that sort of journey of know, like, and trust, you know, sort of going back to that first impression piece, we know that our sort of instinctual emotional brain, you know, responds emotionally to a person, and then our rational brain is looking for the information that will justify. Like, okay, I've talked to Paul, I really like her, you know, like I want to work with her, but I don't know anything about it. You know, like, you've got to try and find those two things to talk to each other. So it's about establishing that emotional connection and then building the relationship that will allow that sort of intellectual connection and trust to develop. Last thing, which I mentioned earlier on, is following up. Do what you said you were going to do it quickly after the meeting, do it consistently, so you're going to be reliable, people are going to see you as trustworthy. Think about, you know, how you show up consistently at networking events. That's the good thing about the ones that you pay to be part of, because they encourage you to be consistent. So when I talk to clients, or when I used to sell advertising, I would really say, buy as much as you can afford so you can be in it every week, every month, or whatever it is. I wouldn't say, buy a full page now and we won't see you for a year. It sends the wrong message. You know, so if you're in a group, be in the group. And I know that work gets in the way and things, but, you know, classic business coach truism is we are what we prioritize. We do, you know, so think about, okay, I joined this group to help myself, to help them. Yes, I know that sometimes on a Wednesday I might have a client, but maybe if it's only once a month, maybe I can actually not schedule a client on that day. Judgment-free zone, not judging anybody who's prioritized a client today for the benefit of the tape. All right, so in summary, mindset. Think about networking as education, as sharing, as an opportunity to help others. Prepare for it, as we talked about. Prepare what you want your impression to be. Make sure you've got business cards, pen. You've got the app on your phone if that's how you're going to do it. Think about, you know, who's going to be in the room. Keep that idea of, you know, impressions are made quickly, but it takes a long time to undo them if it was the one that you didn't wish to convey. Keep it open. Types of you know, use versus circles in terms of how you set up your room. Open questions, open body language. You know, be accessible. And if it's not your way of being, set those intentions to be that way for 90 minutes, and then go and do the things that recharge you afterwards. You know, because you're there to work. That's what you're there for. You're there to be of service to others, but ultimately, yes, we are all enlightened, self-interested individuals that would like our own businesses to grow as well. Let's not be naive about it. Ask good questions, good open questions. Who, why, what, where, when. Be careful of why, but it can still be a good one. Tell me about, you know, share a bit more information on, you know, like those types of questions that encourage people to talk. I guess be mindful though that if you're given an open question, don't then go on for 25 minutes. You know, like, so I think it's obviously, you know, it's a balancing act. Listen actively, that we, you know, reflect and kind of show, don't tell how it is that you operate. Practice your own answers so you don't get stumped, you don't get called out by people who are like, oh, I want to get better at networking too. I'm going to ask Jackie, what makes you most passionate about your business? Well, I don't know, you know. And then follow up, right? Consistently, quickly, and think about how you, you know, can build those relationships over time. You know, go to the event, meet the person, do the follow-up, maybe meet them for a one-to-one, go to the event again, see them again. Know that whole know, like, and trust continuum, know, like, and trust is a journey, it's a process, and but you can't rush it. Yeah, it'll move as fast as it moves. So in the spirit of all of that, I sort of, one of the most boring conversational deadening questions is, what do you do, which is then answered by a job title. Right. So what I've done is, knowing that we're likely to be asked that question, I've come up with a way that you could maybe play around with how you answer it in a slightly more creative manner that would be unexpected for the person that you're talking to. Job titles create so many preconceived ideas about what it is that you're doing, but if you answer it this way, I contend that you can tell people what you do in that sort of emotional storytelling way without ever having them to form an opinion about what a nutrition coach is in their mind, or a business coach, or an acupuncturist, or whatever. So that concludes the formal part of this lunch hour's presentation.